Hi, everybody. This is Erin Gevertz from the Northwest. We will be getting started in about 5 minutes. Okay, hello everybody and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see my screen. Um, can you let me know in the question section if you can hear me and see my screen, please? Okay, let's get started. So my name is Erin Gevertz. Can you hear me? I hope that you can hear me. Can you guys type in the question box if you can hear me, please? Or in the chat box, I guess. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, Reesney. All right, good evening, and thank you all for your patience as we get this settled. We just want to make sure everybody is safe, and so we appreciate your flexibility with doing this as a webinar. My name is Erin Gevertz, and I have been working with A Better Chance for a little over a year and a half. I started with educational access and placement over 10 years ago at a different nonprofit here in the Bay Area, and I love the work very much, and I'm very excited to be here with A Better Chance because we are serving so many families and we work with such an extensive network of schools that it's very exciting to be a part of. So thank you all for taking the time to learn about us tonight. I do have the time, and I think there's enough of us to answer questions as we go. So feel free to type those into the question box, and I will do my best to answer them as we go along. So A Better Chance was founded in 1963, and typically in an in-person session, I would ask the students when or what was happening in the world at that time. And the answer is that, that's when civil rights was happening. And so we were founded initially to help to place African American boys into some of the most exclusive boarding schools here in North America. So Exeter and Andover, and et cetera. Well, since then, we've obviously expanded across the country and serve more than just that particular demographic. And our mission is to increase substantially the number of well-educated young people of color who are capable of assuming positions of responsibility and leadership in American society. So here's actually a picture of a couple of our initial classes of boys, which is very exciting to see, to have that long-standing history of educational access. We're actually the oldest organization of our kind here in the country, and we're very proud to still be able to serve families. All right. From there, I don't know why this is acting differently. So we have quite a legacy of leadership, and we're very proud of it. So we have leaders. We're not just looking for one type of leader. We're looking for leaders in the arts and media and technology and medicine. And so we're very proud of our alumni, extensive network of alumni, and what they've accomplished over the years. So for example, Governor Deval Patrick was the 71st governor of Massachusetts and the first African-American chief executive. He's only the second African-American governor to serve in any state of the nation. And for those of you who just voted here in California, you might have actually seen his name on the run for president, which is pretty exciting that he's an alumni of ours. Additionally, Bertha Coombs went to Milton Academy. She's a reporter for CNBC. She's covered some very important coverage, including Katrina and the trial of this particular CEO. So we're very proud of our alumni, and we are very excited about welcoming in new scholars and families to help to continue with this legacy. So what do? We do a lot. The first thing we do is recruit. So thank you all for being here this evening. The second thing we do is to provide access to a school network. So our member school network involves over 300 schools across the country. These are boarding schools, these are middle schools, high schools, some combination of them both. And what I get excited about is helping to provide access to families to such a wide range of schools. The other thing we do that families love is we help to streamline the application process. So typically, if you're going to apply to 7 different schools, you would have to fill out 7 different applications. We help to streamline that into one application for all of the schools. Another thing that gets me excited is matching students with schools. So we call that our referral process. So based on the academic profile of your student, based on the social emotional profile of the student, their particular interests, activities, etc., where you live, also the income that your family makes, we know our schools well, and so we're able to help to refer your family to a range of schools within our network. We also help to advocate. So currently, this is what I've been doing all day for the last couple of weeks, is advocate. So that looks like getting on the phone with admissions directors and helping to share some additional insights with them about our families that they might not have gotten from the applications themselves, and helping, hopefully, our families to land in schools that they're very excited about. And finally, we provide support. So once our students become scholars, then we have some different supports that we offer throughout their time in middle or high school. The one thing that we don't do is provide scholarships. All of our schools have money to give families who qualify for it. So all of our families complete financial aid applications, and so once that is complete, then schools make offers to families based on their demonstrated need. Oh, sorry. Any questions about what we do? So we've been working with families for over 50 years. It's a very exciting number. Each year, we ideally are placing about 500 new scholars across the country. So we are the Northwest office here in the Bay Area. We also have an office in Los Angeles. We have one in Washington, D.C., in New York in the Northeast, and also in Atlanta. And so these hubs help to serve those families in those particular regions. We have over 2,000 currently enrolled scholars across the country, which is also a big, exciting number. So 2,000 scholars at about 300 schools. And then those educational opportunities that we help to leverage for every scholar are available, right? So these look like summer programs, different internships. There are some scholarships for college that we help to promote. And of course, we're very excited about our over 15,000 alumni. So these are the types of schools that we work with. So under the umbrella of private schools, there's a range of different schools. So if you, many of the students, your kids right now are likely going to a day school. That means they go to school in the day and they come home at night. So those are independent day schools. And independent simply means that these schools are outside of the regular school district and they are not associated with the archdiocese. So parochial schools are associated with the archdiocese. So for example, here in the Bay Area, Sacred Heart Cathedral, St. Ignatius, Bishop O'Dowd, those are parochial schools. We don't work with those particular schools. We work with the independent schools. We also work with independent boarding schools. So those are schools where your child would go live at the school for the week. So some of those schools here in the Bay Area are actually not too far from home. So there's one in San Anselmo, in Danville. So some schools have 5-day boarding programs where students go and live during the school week and then come home on the weekends. And of course, if your student is going farther than San Anselmo or Danville across the country or to a different state, they would be in a 7-day boarding program. And they would live there at the school and come home on vacations or whenever your family decided. And then lastly, something that is unique to our program is our community schools program. So as you know, public school funding is based on the tax bracket of the zip code that the property tax bracket of the zip code that they land in, right? So some schools, depending on their zip code, are much more highly funded than others, simply because of where they're based. So over the years, A Better Chance has developed relationships with some very incredible public schools across the country. We've purchased a home in those particular neighborhoods, and we have our own version of a small boarding program where students attend a particular public school in that neighborhood and live at this house. So the house is like a boarding program. There's a chef, there are tutors, there are house staff who help to make sure students are going to bed on time and being responsible. But students do live there and they attend public school. So that is a free program. The closest one to the Bay Area is in Madison, Wisconsin. So that is a little bit of a distance, but they are a very exciting opportunity for those families who are open to a range of options. Sorry, any questions about our types of schools that we work with? Okay, moving on. There we go. So financial aid. Every independent school uses a different tool or form to help them determine how much a family can realistically afford to pay for their particular child's education. So this calculation is based on things like household income, expenses, assets, liabilities, basing it on the fact that we know that we live in the Bay Area, that is a very expensive area, and tuition assistance or financial aid is offered on a need-based basis, right? So depending on the number of kids that you have in your house, if you have kids who go to private schools, if you have kids who go to college, if you're helping to take care of elderly folks that don't have incomes, schools are taking all of this information into account to provide your family with an offer that is fair for your family based on the information provided, assuming that they are interested in accepting your child into their school. So for example, down here, if a school's tuition is $48,000 and the school determines that you can contribute $3,000, then your award will be $45,000 for that year. Excuse me. And generally, schools will maintain the same tuition assistance for families each year. It may increase a little bit, but assuming that your family's income does not change drastically, then the tuition would be about the same each year. Any questions about that? Oh no. Sorry, everybody. Okay, hopefully you're not getting seasick. There we go. So am I eligible? So if your student is currently in fourth through ninth grade, then you are eligible for our program. Current fourth graders are looking at sixth grade. Current seventh graders are looking at ninth grade. Those are the two most traditional entry points for our program because that's often where schools have space and resources to put towards incoming students. That said, if your child is currently in 5th grade and they'd be looking at 7th grade, it's possible that there might be a spot, but it would just be more limited. And same thing with older students. So if your student's currently in 8th grade, they'd be looking at 10th, or 9th grade looking at 11th. Schools do have space in those particular grades, but we would hope that you would keep a more open mind. We hope that our eligible students demonstrate academic talent by getting good grades. So if your student has predominantly A's and B's, or this equivalent, right? So if you don't have grades and you have narrative reports, but they're reading more positive, or if they have, I don't know, schools do all kinds of different grading things these days, but they have predominantly good grades and would receive strong teacher recommendations. That's also what we're looking for. We're also looking for students who show leadership potential. So these are kids who get involved with activities as they can, right? So maybe it's at school, like student government, or newspaper, or clubs, or sports, or things outside of school, like volunteering, helping with, maybe you're babysitting your younger sibling, all kinds of different activities. And in a moment, we'll go through the applications to show you where you're going to list all those things so that your kids can brag about themselves. And finally, we ask that our students identify as a student of color. So that those are the particular qualifications for our program. And lastly, you can't be a child of a Better Chance alumni at this point and qualify for our program. So any questions about eligibility for a Better Chance? You can either type your questions in the questions box or in the chat box. I'm checking both. Okay, no questions. So we hope that you choose to apply. Your applications are due on April 15th, and everything is submitted online, which I said I'll show you shortly. Once your student is accepted into our cohort, they become a candidate. And over the summer, we have a couple of different workshops that we offer for families. We help students to get ready for interviewing, for writing their essays, for feeling confident in doing their research about schools and identifying things that they might be interested in pursuing in their next school. Being a candidate also involves being referred to different member schools. So that means that we would take your application and send it to the different schools on your family's behalf. And then you would go and get to know those schools. Come March of next year, we'll have decisions for our future cohort 8. And then if a family decides to sign a contract within a Better Chance member school, then you become a Better Chance scholar. We have a new scholar orientation, and we hope that families choose to remain active. And by remaining active, that means that you volunteer when you can for activities, you show up to our workshops that we offer for leadership and other types of personal development. And we hope that once a year, we go and visit each school, and we hope that your students show up to our lunch. Any questions about the phases of the applicant or the next 18 months, essentially? All right. So there's a calendar here. This is a Better Chance admissions timeline. If you go to the handouts, there are handouts that you can download from here. If you're not able to access them, I will probably also send them out in an email, but if you want them sooner than that, then you're welcome to download them here. There is a recruitment packet, and that particular packet has this timeline in it. The most important things to note are, as an applicant, you have the application deadline is April 15th. In May, we will have benchmark testing. We're going to talk about testing in a minute. And then is June, the first week of June is when we send our decisions for who's been accepted into the cohort. Any questions about the calendar? I'm sorry, guys. Come back. Let's see. I can just jump here. There we go. All right, now for everybody's favorite subject, which is testing. So we offer, so private schools require a particular standardized test to be considered for admission. The two standardized tests that schools require are the ISEE and the SSAT. So these are entrance exams. The benchmark test that I was referring to is the SSAT. All schools accept this particular test, and particularly high schools are interested in this score. If you're applying for middle school, so if you're a current 4th, 5th, or 6th grader, and you're applying for middle school, we will strongly encourage you to take the ISEE. It's a little bit nicer of a test. It's not quite as tricky. Kids applying for high school are also recommended to take it because it shows a different skill set than the SSAT, but we are unable to offer ISEE benchmarks. So at this point, the SSAT is the benchmark, and we will, as soon as you submit your application, you will receive a link to register for that test. Now, the benchmark is free, and this is just for use internally. So we use these scores as a measure to help to see where you're starting with this particular test, to help to see where you might be growing from, because over the summer, we talk about testing with families. We expect families and students to start to study for this test because the actual test that they will take place towards the end of September, beginning of October. And these are the scores that we will use to send to schools. So the benchmark scores will not be sent to schools. Those are just for us and for you. And then the actual results of the test will be sent to schools from your test in late September, early October. If you're already taking a benchmark test somewhere else in April or May, you can use those particular benchmark. You can just make sure to send us those test scores, and then we can use those so that your child does not have to take the test twice. Any questions about the benchmark test? Oh. Okay, no particular prep is required for this test, but we do recommend that you take a look online just to see what it's going to look like. Families will need to travel to the testing site if you live within, I think it's 40 or 50 miles of Oakland. So I have currently scheduled one site that is in San Francisco and one that is in Oakland, or the East Bay. Not Oakland, in the East Bay. Depending on what happens with this virus and all of these things that are happening in the world right now, we may have online testing. So we will see what's going on with that. But we are in MS. What's MS? Oh, welcome. If you're not in California, then you will, if you're close enough to a particular test site, then you will test in person. But if, for example, you're in Mississippi, hello, Mississippi, if you're there, then you will test online. Awesome. Okay, any other questions about testing? All right, moving on. Right, so ultimately our process is free and our goal is to save you time and resources with going through this process that can be a lot. We hope that you feel more prepared in applying to private schools as part of our cohort. The only things that families have to pay for, potentially depending on your income, are the actual tests, right? So if you take that, when you take the actual SSAT or the ISEE, those tests range from like $120 to $140 each. And then the other cost is to submit the financial aid application. And that I think is $40 or $50. So overall, it's about $300 throughout the year for our program. But if you were applying to schools on your own, generally speaking, you would be paying $90 to $100 per application to submit. So our goal is to save you time and resources. We're very excited about helping to identify additional schools that complement your current options. And the application involves recommendations and transcripts, so we hope that you start now. So speaking of the application, any particular questions about this presentation? Yes. The question is, what is your success rate? And by success rate, do you mean the number of students that we place into schools? Gotcha. That's a great question. So for example, I'll speak to my region. I don't have the rest of the statistics in front of me, but last year in my region, we started with 160 families in our cohort. And generally speaking, we want to accept as many students as we can into our cohorts because we want to help to serve as many families as possible. From there, I had 127 families finish the process. And finish the process means that they took the tests, they submitted their application parts on time, they finished the requirements of the visits to the schools. So that was 127. And of that group last year, 76 chose to enroll into member schools. So 76 out of 127 or 125. So that's about right for the different regions as well. Yeah, so ultimately, some families will receive acceptances to a member school and opt to go to a parochial school or a local public or charter school. So that's the family's choice. But our goal is to place as many students as we can into our member schools. The beauty of this program is that we work with so many schools. So the more open you stay to options, the more likelihood you have of getting placed into a school. If you have more questions about our statistics, feel free to email admissions@abetterchance.org, and they'll be able to give you the statistics for the rest of the country. Any other questions? Yes, the question is, will my child's school know that we're applying for other schools? Yes, they would, because they have to complete teacher recommendations. This one says, hello, we're in Castro Valley. Is there a hub site for testing? No, so you would probably come to our East Bay location. I don't know why I can't read the rest of your question. Okay, any other questions about the testing or the program? Right. As far as anxiety testing, we are unable to offer accommodations for students. So what we hope is that, students will study students will study, especially for the actual test, right? We know that the benchmark test is just that, it's just a benchmark. That doesn't mean the students should not do their best, but we do hope that for the actual test that students will take, you know, if a student is studying 15 or 20 minutes a day, every day during the summer, they will absolutely feel more confident when they get to that actual test, and they will be more prepared for what is coming up next. So the next thing I'd like to do is walk you through the application. Are there any more questions about the program? If you do have more questions, feel free to ask as we go along. Okay, so here's the application. This is the what it looks like if you have not yet started it. So the first thing is, if you have not yet completed an online inquiry, I strongly, strongly recommend that you do that. So that's actually done by going to our website, and up here in this corner, you'll see the inquiry in the top right-hand corner. That helps to get you into our database because we cannot see your application until you've submitted it. So this way we'll make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information from our national office or regional office for your process. Once you've done that, you're welcome to start the application. So here is information about the applicant. Then there's information, household 1. So if you are a family who has 2 different households, we will need the information for both households, right? It says here, use household 2 for any parent or legal guardian who plays an active role in the student's life and is financially responsible for the student, but who resides in a different address. So if you have a household 2, but you have a particular situation that's unique to you as a single parent, the more information that we can have from the beginning, the better we'll be able to serve you. So feel free to reach out to your your regional offices about that. So information about the parent, parent 1, parent 2. This is household 2. This is a totally separate household. You're going to enter information about those folks if they exist. Then we have application history. So have you applied to our program before? Do you know people in our network? What school does your child go to? What school did your child go to before the school that he or she goes to? And then this is for the parents. So the parent guardian questionnaire. So parents, this is where you get to brag about your children. So what are his or her strengths and weaknesses? Here we hope that you are honest with us. These answers will be going to the schools, right? There is an opportunity to update them later in the process, but generally speaking, we hope that you write these knowing that they'll be going to the schools. Second, is your child resilient? Why are you pursuing this opportunity? If your child has an IEP or a 504, please share more information with us about that. If you're considering boarding schools, let's talk about that. If you're not sure about boarding schools, no problem. We will continue to share more information as we go along in this process. Your information about your earnings is also very important, that you are transparent with us from the beginning. So if you're receiving, if you're working, we need to know that. If you're receiving child support or Social Security, please share all your information there. And then you're going to upload documents that demonstrate what you have put up here. I know that it can be interesting or difficult to share such detailed personal information with schools. With us. All of this is just for us at this point. But this really helps us to determine if you're the right match for us for the program, and also if we'll best be able to serve you. Okay. Then if there's household information income information for parent 2, that person will put that information here. Unlike what we do when we get a new phone or sometimes sign up for a new app on the phone, we expect families to read this in its entirety. So for example, this says that you will not be able to get a copy of this application back once you have submitted it. So it's important that you, if you want a copy of this, that you download it, a copy for yourself prior to submitting it. All right, so this is for the applicant. So here's where the kids are going to get to brag about themselves. This is something that is often new for students. Typically, students are not, they're told to be humble and not to brag about themselves, but on an application like this, we are excited to get to know everything. So we want to hear about their experiences in the arts, athletics, community service, music, performance, and dance, etc. This particular section with the portfolio, if your student has a portfolio that is like professionally done, some schools have this. If you go to an arts school, some schools have the students make a website, feel free to include it. If you don't have anything like this, don't worry about it. Now this is for the applicant, okay? Parents, you can review their work, but please make sure that your child is filling this out. So here, academic awards or honors they've earned in the past 2 years. If your school doesn't give awards or honors, no problem, just write that in that box. What are a couple of things that they like about the current school? The more description the students put, the better, right? So if they say, I like sports and I like my friends, those are boring answers, and we hope that they choose to elaborate more than that. How would you rate yourself as a student? So if your student has B's and C's on their report card and they're rating themselves as excellent, there might be a mismatch there, right? So this is an opportunity for students to reflect on how they are as a student and talk about where they want to grow. These are short answers. All of these should be answered before submitting the application. Very often students are like, I don't know what my own nickname would be. Well, the good news is you have over a month to answer this application, so you have time to think about it and then come back and make sure that all of the questions are answered prior to submitting. And then finally, there's an essay for the questions. So that means that students will choose one essay that they will write 300 to 500 words on this particular topic to submit to us. They will choose one topic, not all of them. And as always, the first draft should never be the draft that we see. Students should definitely rewrite this a couple of times prior to submitting it to us. Okay. From there, let's see. We also have teacher recommendations that are required. So, no, that's not it. There we go. So there's supporting documents that we need submitted. So you're going to upload a photo of your child, their transcript, report card from the past 2 years, and any standardized testing that your state administers. So in California, that could be the CAASP, the ERBs, whatever state testing is administered, we need copies of that. Additionally, you will be asking for recommendations. So one is from the counselor or the principal, and the other one is from an academic teacher. So it could be math, science, English, history, or social studies. To submit these to the person, you're just going to write their email in here. And this is not a good example of what to say. Hi, fill this out now. Instead, you'll write them a nice note asking them to please submit this application to us, in a timely manner. And please make sure to give them all of as much time as possible so that they can brag about your child as much as possible. And then finally, we have benchmark testing, which we already reviewed. And once we have your child's scores, you'll see a green mark in here. You'll see green marks in these boxes as you complete the application. As soon as you submit the application, you will not see a green mark. We have an amazing team in New York who is responsible for processing all these documents. So once something's been submitted, please give it up to a week or so to be processed, as we're processing over 2,000 families' documents. And then it should be there and we will be able to read it. So let me see what other questions we have here. Okay, there we go. All right, so we talked about Castro Valley. So I'm finding, I recently did a major cleaning, so I'm finding it hard. How do I make this bigger? Finding it hard to find things when we fill out the application. No, unfortunately, we cannot provide one-on-one support. We are a two-person office in each region supporting all of these families. So we definitely recommend that you ask a teacher or a counselor or a family friend to support you with this application process if you feel that that would be helpful. Same question, will someone help and advise us? Yeah, so if you have particular questions, you can always email admissions@abetterchance.org and they will do their best to assist you. But if you feel like you need more support than we are offering with the application, I definitely recommend that you ask somebody or even a family friend who's gone through this before, and they will be able to very likely help you with this process. Come on. So the question is, do we accept all applications or turn some down? So typically why we turn down applications is because A, they're not complete. So if you don't complete the application, we cannot accept you. B, that's pretty much it. If your family is earning, so we have found that families who earn $250,000 or less are the families that we serve best in our program. So if your family's earning, upwards of $500,000, $1 million, we are probably not the program for you. Also, if your student has a bunch of C's and D's and F's on the report card, we are likely not the program for you either. But generally speaking, we try to accept as many applications as possible. Okay. If you need copies of your students' transcripts or report cards, you should always ask the school and they'll be able to help you. Do you have to test before the deadline? No. So your testing would happen after you've submitted your application sometime in April or March. Okay, I think that those were all the questions. Are there any additional questions? These are great questions. Any additional questions I can help to answer this evening for you? Yes, so the deadline is April 15th and you will hear back from us by the first week of June. Any other questions I can help to answer this evening? Right, so yeah, so boarding school is an option. If you look on our website, you can see all of the different boarding schools that we work with. And so at some point in the application, we ask you families, which kinds of schools you're open to considering. Now, if you're looking at middle school, it would probably be a day school. We have very few what are called junior boarding schools. However, if your child is looking at high schools, we have boarding schools in each one of our regions. So if you're only open to your particular region, there will be an option to choose that. If you're open to looking across the country, there will be an option to choose that. And we will make those referrals for your family based on the strength of your student's academic profile. All right, so the handouts that I attached are the ones for the Northwest region. If you are interested in the handouts for your particular region, you should definitely reach out to the region itself, and they'll be able to provide you with more information for your particular region. But generally speaking, it's the same, except for on the Northwest region, on the schools option, I only put the 35 member schools we have here in the Northwest. Right, well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you all this evening. Oh, here we go. There was a question on the application if you're willing to stay behind in a grade. Yeah, so depending on when your child is born, private schools have their own birthday cutoffs, right? So if your child is a November or December baby and they're coming in and they're young, even in their current public or charter school, then if they are attending a boarding school or a boarding or private school, they will be definitely the youngest in their grade. So sometimes schools have the option, a very exciting option, of repeating the grade at their school. So personally, I don't look at this as holding back a child, because what it does is it helps to get them on track with other students who are their same age, right? So that eventually when they're applying for college, when they're applying for whatever their next thing is, they will be the same age. They'll have more, they'll be more mature. They'll be more ready for what's coming next, right? So if your child is born October, November, December of the year, and they're already the youngest in their class, it doesn't mean that they won't be considered for the particular grade. I'm especially talking about middle school, but sometimes even in high school. Some schools go from K to 12. And so if they're looking at a student and they fall in love with your student, but they notice that he or she is very young and they're willing to offer them a spot in 8th grade, or they're willing to offer them a spot in 5th grade, ultimately it means that he or she would spend one additional year in this incredible school, right? Continuing to get really strong academics, really strong extracurriculars, having a great school experience, so that when they go to college or when they go to high school, they'll be even more ready. So it's not a guaranteed thing, but I've definitely seen the benefits of this in my 12 years of placement. And I will just say that generally the student is not excited about it. Okay, and it's not necessarily holding your child back, because the curriculum at these schools will be different than the curriculum that your child is currently getting. Even if some of the concepts are the same, generally speaking, the curriculum will be more advanced. So one example, just quickly, I had a student who repeated 5th grade at a school. 5th grade at this particular school was middle school. So she was still changing classes and had the middle school experience. She was not happy with me until she got accepted into her first choice high school, which is one of the most competitive high schools in the Bay Area. And then recently I went and visited her. She's at Barnard College. She was awarded one of 5 all-inclusive scholarships from Barnard, which are competitive from students from all around the world. And finally, at dinner, we were able to discuss, and she said, "I'm sorry for giving you such a hard time for repeating back then. I now see that it benefited me." So as adults, we're able to look into the future and understand that, this is a long game and not the short game for the families. So that is a question about repeating grades. That was a very long answer, but that is my thoughts on that. Any other questions? Do we find it easier for students who join the program young? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. No, I think students who come in at any point, if the students are ready for a more challenging environment, and the student wants this, it's not just the parents who want this, but if the students are ready for a more challenging environment that will provide additional opportunities for extracurriculars and things to get involved with, then I think that the right time could be any time. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for showing up this evening. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and answering your questions. We look forward to receiving your applications. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to admissions@abetterchance.org or to your regional offices. Most of us are currently very deep in advocacy for our current cohort. So please give us 48 hours to respond to you, but we look forward to getting your application. The list of member schools can be found on our website. So if you go to admissions and programming, go to partners, member schools. And there you can see, there we go, all of the different schools. The map, please don't use the map. Our team is working on updating that. But down here, you can search by city, you can search by state or by region, by grade, and those will help you to see the different schools that we work with. All right, thank you everybody. Have a great rest of your night. We look forward to receiving your applications. Cheers to a great rest of your school year.